all. Really excited for today. Two very, varying perspectives, which is exciting. I thought we would kick it off a little bit talking about today's state in CRE tech. You all are both very familiar. Introduce yourself first, and then we'll talk a little bit about some emerging technologies and what you guys are focused on.
Sure.
Maybe Jenny, you could start telling a little bit about what you do and where your day is focused.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Wong. I'm a managing director at Tishman Speyer, based out here in San Francisco. Tishman Speyer is a global real estate company. We own, we operate, we're vertically integrated. We develop, we lease, we manage office, residential, mixed use, including retail. And we're very long on urban, so we are generally in cities large cities around the world. I was going to say, I thought my picture was okay, but Sam's is great. I spend most of my time on venture as a strategic PropTech investor. We partner with a number of companies that we also help to scale, as well as on new business, whether it is identifying new business opportunities for us to JV with, to launch ourselves, to build ourselves. So I spend a fair amount of my time on both the PropTech side and then the innovation, new business side.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. Sam, tell us a little bit about your role, having spent time on the enterprise software side now in finance.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sam Yen. I'm really new to the real estate industry and actually the finance industry as well. I think this is my second year at this conference, and it was just to tell a funny story. I've been in technology all my life. I started my career starting a company as an entrepreneur, did that for about 5 years in enterprise software, then joined SAP for 13 and a half years. I was the chief design officer for SAP and ran the labs in Silicon Valley. But yeah, last year at this conference, I was wearing my JP Morgan name tag, and somebody introduced themselves and said, "Are you a banker?" And that just kind of shocked me. I was like, "Who are you talking to?" Right? I'm a tech guy. I joined JP Morgan about a year ago. There's a lot of lines of business, but commercial banking. There's a commercial real estate line of business within the commercial bank. Most of our revenue is actually just based on mortgages. It's mostly multifamily, so that's kind of 1 year in. That's my scope of expertise. But my job is really simple. I mean, I think JP Morgan's the #1 multifamily lender in the U.S., but there's no digital experience at all for our clients. So my job is simply figure out where we could bring technology and deliver a digital experience for our clients.
Okay, great. Awesome. And like you said, very different perspectives. It is such a large asset class, the commercial side, including the multifamily. Maybe y'all can talk about, from each of your perspectives, technologies you're seeing a lot out in the market, things that are happening, more market trends, and where you see some emerging, new technologies and innovation in each of your respective sectors.
So I guess on our end, there are probably a few that we see a lot of and are just digging into, particularly right now. I'd say one, as folks probably are well aware of, there is a ways to go in terms of sort of productivity, adopting technology, and sort of in sort of paper to cloud type of processes in real estate, and just making things a little bit more efficient. So we spend a lot of our time thinking about that, using data and analytics to just make decisions, to infuse into underwriting decisions, whether it's from the acquisitions perspective, whether it's in asset management and all the different verticals kind of the business. And I'd say a real interest area of mine has been on the residential side in terms of figuring out technologies that might help drive down construction costs and, on the flip side, enable greater production of housing.
Yeah, I think from my side, I was actually shocked in terms of just the real estate industry and the opportunity that technology could actually bring in, just because when I worked at SAP, we supported 25 different industries, and so some of the real leading kind of cutting edge uses of these technologies, when people talk about machine learning and Internet of Things, I'm thinking about kind of helping McLaren and the F1 team, fine tune their race car in real time and in memory data, that kind of technology. And then especially kind of the area that I'm looking at, we are looking at landlords and for the most part kind of down segment landlords. And I remember, just spending a lot of time just getting out into the field, talking, interviewing these little landlords, trying to understand kind of what their pain points are. And when you try to talk technology to them, it's for a lot of people, especially the older generation, it's a foreign concept to the point where there's technophobia going on, right? We were introducing an early kind of proof of concept, and we had to introduce the notion of scrolling the screen so they could see kind of more information at the bottom of the screen. So when you talk about blockchain and artificial intelligence, machine learning, and those types of things, I think the first part is just getting them familiar and to understand exactly how technology can be introduced to provide kind of better insights for how they run their business. Again, coming from a design background, for me, it's not technology, but the value that technology could bring to people in helping them run their business. Specifically for what we're trying to do is, aggregating a lot of data. I think that's really, really important. There's all this data all over the place. Even within JP Morgan itself, we've got 20 different systems that spans 20, 30 years of history, but they're all kind of siloed in different systems, and we need to aggregate that information out and present it in a way that could actually be meaningful to the business.
I guess maybe to add to that, because I know there are a lot of CEOs in the audience, one of the things that, to your point about how do you evidence sort of quick wins early to drive adoption, one of the things that I think when we think about like how do we use data better, or how do we think about data, which is a very large question and a large problem and a lot to unpeel there. One thing that's helped us is thinking about what are the discrete use cases that we would want to solve first, and really narrowing down the questions, really narrowing down how to solve those questions, just to be able to both focus the time and efforts of our own internal teams, but also drive greater adoption, because we're like, see, we solved that problem, it works. So then we can roll out to sort of other ancillary problems as well.
I mean, just to follow up on that, that's my biggest question is, how do you drive any adoption of technology, right? Again, kind of you all kind of address different segments, but in that small landlord segment, how do you just get people out of Microsoft Excel and willing to explore some ways? Because you can make all kinds of rational, logical arguments of inefficiencies and things that could be gained, but just getting people to take that first step, it's psychological.
Yeah, for sure. Super helpful on the perspective of how things are done within the organization, and it's a good segue. Who are the partners or stakeholders internally that you guys regularly work with in these evaluations of new technologies for folks out there who are potentially trying to position themselves with individuals like you or others like you at similar firms? What does that process internally look like?
Yeah, I mean, for us, again, I can't speak for the entire firm. It's a huge, 300,000 people in the firm. So, but we, Jamie Dimon has made, the last question of the previous panel, Jamie Dimon has in public said we are going to be a technology company. I don't know exactly what that means, but I do know that he's spending a lot of money on investing. A huge emphasis, spending a lot of money on technology. So we have pockets of expertise, within the firm, but it's also, such a large firm that kind of, there's also the natural silos. I know specifically within the commercial real estate space, it's not that there's no technology experts. There's a really, really good team that's developed a lot of internal systems to bring kind of efficiencies into our internal processes. But again, kind of hiring people like me and others, we're doing a lot of external hiring to bring that expertise into the firm. We're also going to rely on a lot of partnerships, to be honest, right? So I mean, that's one of the interests of this. For me specifically, is to learn kind of what's going on in the startup world, because we don't feel that we're going to be doing this ourselves. We feel that we've got a great channel of clients that's been built up over 30 years, and we could provide a channel into those clients, but we don't necessarily think that we're going to be building everything ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. No, super.
I think on our end, in terms of, selling into any real estate organization is really hard. It's a really fragmented space, and there are a lot of decision makers. And at least speaking for us, I'd say things that are important for us is, if it's a product that we will be using, having endorsement from the end user is really important. And sometimes we've tried to figure that out through pilots. We'll sign up for a pilot, we might run a pilot, and it's great, and we end up running full force into adoption. Sometimes we sign up for a pilot, and in actually setting up the pilot, we realize this is really, really hard, and the champion that we thought we had isn't actually the champion, and so that's also a really good thing to know. So I'd say it's identifying the end user who will be your champion through it is pretty important. From the seat that I sit in, which is, I work across a number of regions, I work with a lot of different teams, and so I've sort of have a sense of who personally in our organizations really interested in technology. And those are the folks who I might might speak to for sort of subject matter expert opinions. If it's somebody who is in our design and construction team and loves construction tech and sends me sort of new companies all the time that he's excited about, that's somebody who's kind of a subject matter expert and a champion internally. So insofar as you are selling into organizations like ours and you're meeting folks like that, I think those are also good folks to align with and sort of get to know better, because they can also be helpful champions through that process.
Awesome, really great. Both of you have mentioned a bunch on innovation and the end user experience, and I know it's something that probably pertains to both the multifamily or residential part of the audience and also the commercial. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how much of an emphasis the end user experience is in areas you're looking at for either optimization or growth.
Yeah, I can jump in. This is kind of my sweet spot, being with a design background. I mean, how many people have actually gone out, and spoken to your clients and kind of done kind of that kind of in-depth, research with their clients, walked a mile in their shoes and those kinds of things? Raise your hands, right? I mean, that's, we're so lucky within our organization that the CEO of the commercial bank, really kind of buys into that kind of methodology, right? So the end client experience, really becomes the North Star and the guiding light for every decision that we make, right? So it becomes really, really important. And we follow this design thinking methodology. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's a concept that companies, innovation consultancies like IDEO and the Stanford D School have started to teach that. But we really, really practice that because at the end of the day, we feel that kind of innovation isn't just people sitting within our four walls or even kind of from the partner community, looking at kind of breakthroughs in technology. It's got to be driven from a business perspective and a technology perspective, but most importantly from unmet client needs at the end of the day, right? And that's really the methodology that we follow.
I'd say on our end, as we think about the customer and the client experience, we very much focus on client-centric and hospitality type of experience. In the last few years, we've hired in a bunch of folks from a hospitality background into our office business to be able to better deliver that experience in our office building. So as an example, Rockefeller Center is a building that we own in New York, and a new program that we've launched in the last year that I think is really neat is, when we have guests come, like if any of you came to visit me at Rockefeller Center, you might show up and someone might greet you in the lobby and say, hello, hey Sam, nice to see you, come on in. And I've had so many meetings where folks come up and they're like, that was so interesting, they just knew my name and they shepherded me through security. It was great. And it becomes such a surprise and delight moment that starts the meeting off in a different way. So things like everything from sort of process changes like that to sort of changing, the types of folks that we're hiring for client-facing roles in the lobby, for example, are very much elements of how we think about the client-centric experience. And then I'd say on the residential side, we've spent time doing focus groups with folks in our buildings to better get a sense of what their needs are. And one of those focus group topics, which is around the needs of families in our buildings, led us to launching a business it's a joint venture with a co-living company, Common, targeting family-oriented living. So we very much take customer feedback very much to heart and figure out how we might be able to solve the needs that we learn about.
Yeah, I mean, I could give one more example, specifically of how we do that. We will kind of create a day in the life of our specific, client, and kind of walk through the as-is experience, based on a lot of research that we do, and then we'll bring clients in and actually, co-create or co-innovate with them in terms of what the to-be experience is, what's the aspirational experience that we could offer. And it doesn't necessarily have to be things that we provide or even things that are out in the marketplace right now. But then, that aspirational, journey, that journey map of the day in the life, then is plastered all over our walls, and that becomes, again, what we're shooting for every single day. That's become, whether it's, what we're building ourselves or what we're looking for from a partner perspective, how do we match and how do we kind of exceed that aspirational experience?
Just fantastic. Before I continue on with questions, I wanted to turn it over to the audience if there was one or two out there to make sure to squeeze them in. Does anybody have any questions for either of our panelists?
Hello, yeah, you can hear me. Design thinking, journey mapping, technology, how do you get those concepts really into the culture and the DNA of a company like JP Morgan Chase? I know you're early on, but it's a large company with opportunities to backslide everywhere. You're moving forward in digital. What are some steps you've taken in the year you've been there?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I had a lot of experience at SAP because we had to do that at a 100,000 person German company, which also wasn't easy. But it's basically speaking the language to executives to make sure they understand what it's all about. Like designers like to get into design talk very, very quickly, and then you lose the business audience. So I have a very kind of simple elevator pitch, right? Most CEOs are looking for innovation. Innovation is really, really important, no matter if you're JP Morgan Chase or a startup company. But what is innovation? And innovation is a combination of creativity and execution. Innovation is equal to creativity times execution. A company like JP Morgan Chase has execution in spades, but if you ask executives, what about on the creativity side? Everybody puts their hands down kind of sheepishly. And then so they self-acknowledge that they need more creativity. And then you ask them, well, you could go to business school and learn about execution. What are you going to do within your own organization? So luckily, there's something called design thinking that teaches you how to kind of discover your own individual creative confidence in your creativity, but it also allows you to methodologically kind of scale that across your entire organization. So if you're looking for innovation and you've got that execution, here's a way where we could deliver and kind of upskill that creativity. So that's usually the pitch that I give.
Great. Any other questions out there? If not, I definitely have a couple more. So one of the last parting thoughts, would love to get each of your perspective on the next 3 to 5 years, specifically in the commercial, the CRE part of the market. Any thoughts on kind of the future? We've talked a lot about data and predictive, and would love to get each of your perspectives on some changes we might see in the next couple of years.
I guess I'd say one, I would anticipate a lot faster and greater adoption of technology. So I mentioned earlier sort of this pilot phase, and a bunch of CEOs in the room are probably like, you don't want to get stuck in pilot phase forever with your clients. And so I would imagine that fast forward 3 to 5 years, there will be probably a faster adoption to just learning about a new technology and becoming a customer of a new technology, and probably deeper into the real estate world. So a number of the owners that Sam's been referencing will probably adopt faster than they have after having gone through these 3 to 5 years of sort of greater acclimation to what's been going on. And I'd also hypothesize I'd anticipate real estate continues and will probably continue to be quite fragmented. Like even in the construction space, you've got owners and investors and GCs and subcontractors and multiple layers of subs and lots of layers of insurance. And I would anticipate that there will probably be greater focus on software solutions that target sort of specific tranches, because any of those buckets is like pretty enormous as a TAM, right? And so sort of anticipate that there might be a recognition that some of these large products that are fairly well adopted in the industry are great generally, but there are some more specific use cases that might benefit from more tailored software technology as well.
Yeah. I don't give predictions, so maybe I'll just position it as aspirations and hopes for the industry. I hope that there's so much data that's out there in kind of multiple systems, whether it's public sources of data, kind of internally kind of siloed things like the things that we have, the things that you have, the things that everybody has. So, I'm hoping that there's going to be some more standardization in the industry. I think it's going to take some big players to come together to be able to do that. I know we've been working with you all. Just the simple fact. How do you identify a property in a unique way, so that when you have multiple sources of system coming in from all these different areas, you can match it to that you're talking about that same property, and how do you define kind of the boundaries and all that stuff of that property. So. Hopefully kind of that will happen. Hopefully, there's going to be some more industry standards when it comes to APIs, so that we could, have a common language of communicating between kind of different systems and sharing that information. And that's going to, ultimately then, make the experience much easier. It's going to make it much easier for people to kind of get involved. There's going to be much more solutions out there for our clients. And ultimately, hopefully we'll be able to take all of those capabilities and turn those into great experiences, again, for our clients.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Big thank you to Sam and Jenny. Fantastic. Really appreciate everyone's time and insights today.